Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back on PowerTube TV. And, of course, this show, as always, being powered by Tracktune. And it so happens that our special guest on tonight's show happens to be one of the gentlemen who actually invented the Tracktune app that you've been hearing so much about for the last couple months. And so we're going to get kind of a behind the scenes look without the secret sauce, of course, but we're going to get a behind the scenes look at how that all got started and exactly what it can do. And we're going to bring Cassten Everidge right on the show with us here. Welcome him. And then, of course, we'll have some hot topics at the end. And boy, have we got plenty of those to talk about. So, okay, Cassten Everidge, welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to have you with us. And Cassten, in addition to his work with the Tracktune app, Cassten's a racer. And Cassten is currently running in the CRA, kind of Midwest-ish here in the U.S., late model class, and doing a great job. We're going to kind of talk about your career a little bit. I want to know, first of all, though, go all the way back for me and tell me how you got interested in motorsports in the first place. And how old were you?
Yeah, so I think my story is pretty similar to most people in our industry today. You know, grew up in the pits of local asphalt tracks here around Indiana. My dad's been racing, since he was 18 years old. So myself as a young kid, all I ever wanted to do was race. That's just the way it goes when you grow up around it, I guess. Looking all the way back to my, third grade homework, all I wanted to do was be a super late model driver when I grew up. So I guess I've achieved some piece of that. But yeah, it's growing up around the pits, you develop this crippling addiction that we all have very early on in life. So yeah, unlike a lot of people in my generation, I guess, I actually didn't start quite as young as some of them. When I was a kid, my dad made me play baseball, even though I wanted to drive quarter midgets. And in hindsight, it's obviously because he wanted to keep racing. And I would definitely do the same thing if I had a 4-year-old kid today. No, I think you need to play baseball, and I need to keep racing for 10 more years, So I got a fairly late start. By fairly late, I mean, 13-ish is when I drove my first race car. It was at Angola Motor Speedway, and it was a Chevy Metro, I believe, front-wheel drive.
Okay.
So using the term race car pretty loosely here, obviously.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
But there was numbers on the side of the car, and I think it might have had a roll cage in it, so we're going to call it a race car.
There you go.
But that was also when I learned to drive stick, was on that racetrack that day. So you can imagine there was a few clunky starts getting out to the track.
And how old were you? You were how old? You said 13?
13, yeah. And yeah,
baptism by fire.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. But I put on my dad's fire suit that was about 5 sizes too big, and hopped in the Chevy Metro and took her for a spin. But yeah, that was at the time you had to be 14 to race anything at the track. I know a lot of that's changed since then. So I had to wait till I was 14, and at that point in time, I was able to race in the mini stock division. And yeah, I sent you a picture today of my first mini stock. It was a Ford Pinto.
Yeah, as of course, right? A Pinto. Yeah. That's the perfect race car.
Yeah, and I think that one was actually a race car. I don't think we're using the word as loosely when we
well, it would be better than the Metro. And I'll tell you what, Pinto bodies we had the NASCAR type modifieds. They called them modified sportsmen back in the 70s and early 80s, and they were the Pinto became one of the top bodies for the modifieds in that day. And oh my God, the Pintos were great race car bodies. Not so much the car itself was a good road car, but they were great.
Yeah.
Great bodies for race cars.
Oh yeah,
Cool
and they had the leaf springs on the rear, which turned out to be a great adjustment for mini stock oval asphalt racing. So
okay,
it was fairly versatile car in that regard. But yeah, talk about baptism by fire again. I remember at the time being really nervous about being on a track with 20 other cars, mostly which were grown men. And I was a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I kept telling my dad, like, hey, I want to go practice and I want to feel comfortable before we go into a real race or whatever. And of course that didn't happen. We showed up on race day and I got thrown in there. I think I finished 8th, my first race. And as you can imagine, I was completely terrified when the green flag flew. But that's the way you learn. So
8's good though.
Yeah, of course.
That's a great finish for your first time at that age against adults. I'd say that was a great day.
My goal was to finish on the lead lap, and we did that. So it was a successful first race. I had no idea that it would smell like that. I had no idea that people were, hitting each other that much out on the racetrack. It looks a lot different from the stands. So yeah, intimidating for sure as a child.
So I'm curious what your dad thought of that, though, because again, you're telling me he made you wait all those years so he could keep racing, but then you go out and you finish in the top half of the field in your first race. So what's your dad thinking at this point?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever talked about it, but if I had to put myself in his shoes, I would probably say, oh no, we're going to have to keep doing this now. I would guess that was his reaction. But yeah, that was the beginning, and haven't stopped since. The worst part of my day today was when I was, trying to think through this whole racing chronology, and I realized my first race was when I was 14, and I just turned 28. So I've now been racing as long as how old I was in that first race, and that ruined my day. But
well, you're still young by racer standards, though. I mean, shoot, you got. There's a guy racing in my home track and just turned 68. So, he's running a super modified. So you're all right. You got about 35 years left or so, 40 years if the Lord keeps you healthy.
Yeah, love to hear that. Obviously, I can't stop now. So it's really always been. All I ever wanted to do since I was a kid is race late models. So to be able to have the opportunity to race them today is such a blessing. But so that first season in the Pinto at Angola Motor Speedway, had a pretty decent year. We never got a win. I believe I finished second place a few times.
Okay.
Never got a win in Angola. So after the Angola season, we went to Mottville Speedway in Mottville, Michigan. And,
Michigan, yep.
So a lot of your listeners probably aren't familiar with Mottville, Michigan Speedway, but it is an absolute gem. It just got closed down. So in remembrance of this beautiful track, I'd like to share just a few stories of the place. So first of all, it was a quarter mile, completely flat. And there was a wall all the way around except for in turn 3 and 4 where there was a woods. So the wall stopped, and then turn 3 and 4 was trees. And I had seen a street stock go into the woods before, and they had to hook the tow truck up to them and pull them out.
Yeah.
But this track, some of my fondest racing memories were here. The guy who owned it, Merle Holden, he died a few years ago, but he was just an absolute great guy. He owned an insurance agency in Mottville, Michigan. And then on Saturday, he ran the racetrack. And then on Sunday, he was a preacher at the local church. And
wow.
So that was Merle. and
That's great. A track promoter who is a preacher.
yeah, he is. He did it all. He was collecting money at the ticket booth when the track opened, and then before the race, he would say the prayer, and then I don't know. He might have been the one waving the flag too. I don't even know. But
And of
it was
course, 10% of all of that went to the church, right?
yeah, of course. Yeah, but it was such a great track, and it's a perfect track for, at the time, myself being 14, a flat track where there's no grip. So you spend a lot of time, being sideways, hitting bumps, the rocky surface. There's trees or leaves on 3 and 4 that were slippery. So it was great to spend a lot of time, outside of the band of traction. And I feel like that's where I, in my first year, I learned so much, being sideways so often there, and small tracks. So obviously you're rubbing fender to fender with the other guys there. And that's where I was able to finally get my first win at Mottville. And we ended up just running there at the end of the season. Got a few wins, ended up somehow
That's
fourth in
great.
points. And yes, we got to go to the track banquet, and I got a Michael Waltrip cooler and a stained Rusty Wallace t-shirt. So
A stained Rusty Wallace t-shirt.
it was a bit of a blue collar operation, but it was charming. Like, it was really charming. It's really a shame that it ended up closing down, just because how many fun memories we had at that place.
Well, what did the fans just go away? I mean, there's obviously an evolution that happened there that was going the wrong way. It was going down instead of up. What happened to the track, do you think?
Yeah, I can't say. There were a few times we saw the stands completely full there. But I think ultimately, that was it seemed, at least, Merle's passion project was that racetrack. And I think without Merle, there wasn't anyone left to support it. So yeah, it's so many good memories. It's a shame to see it go. But there was a time that those bleachers did fill up when we were there, and it was probably my second year running those mini stocks. It's called the Promoter's Choice 100 or something of that nature, and
Okay.
there was something like 70 to 80 mini stocks that showed up for that race.
Wow.
And yeah, there was people pitted over on the grandstand side. It was a great race. But anyway, there had to be a C main, a B main, and then we made the A main. We're really excited about that. I think this might have still been in my first year. We ended up finishing fourth, but I remember, somewhere in the middle of that race, it was starting to get dark, and we started wondering, like, does this place have lights? Like, we see light poles, but we have no evidence to suggest they work. But they came on, and yeah, it was great place to learn.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, and it's a shame. A lot of those bull rings, the smaller tracks, you do have a Merle. You have a guy who either built it himself or someone else built it. He bought it. It's kind of his thing. And people don't realize how much work it is to own and operate a racetrack. Everybody thinks it's simple, but it's not. And it's always, when that person leaves us, sometimes it's just hard to find someone else who's willing to put the time and the effort in that they did into the track, and ultimately it just goes away. And that's always Heartbreak City, because you never like to lose a racetrack. Cassten, we're going to step aside for a moment. When we come back, we're going to pick up the story with you, and we'll talk some Tracktune later in the show as well. We'll be back with more of the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the Tracktune app. Tracktune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV, and this segment being brought to you by Ultimate QM. If you want to get your son or daughter into a race car that's safe and gives you some flexibility to run locally, regionally, or nationally, Quarter Midgets can provide you that opportunity. And Ultimate QM is the hottest chassis on the market right now. It is made right here where we are in Mooresville, North Carolina. Andy and Stephanie Loden and their son Nick. It's a family operation, and you can not only get the cars, but of course parts and service and coaching and all of that sort of thing, setups. They do it all. And in fact, as we're recording this show, they're out in Indianapolis at one of the biggest quarter midget national events of the year. I think it's part of the NASCAR Youth Series now. The Battle at the Brickyard, I think is what they call it, or something along those lines. And Nick's actually won that. So lots of Ultimate QM winners around the country, and your son or daughter could be one of them. Winners win on Ultimate QM. Okay, we've got Cassten Everidge still with us, and it's walking Cassten through his career. Funny stories about Montville Speedway in Michigan. And I want to ask you about this because in my notes, I have written here, you got paid $100 to win, and then you also got a 4x6. Those are tiny for those of you who don't know. 4x6 victory lane photo, which costs $3. And it says you only got paid $97 at the window. They gave you a little 4x6 photo and then took the $3 out of the purse to pay the photographer.
That's right. You get your envelope, and if you wanted to get a 4x6, for one of your sponsors too, now you're down to $94.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it works itself out because sometimes you get little bonuses at the pay window as well. Sometimes you win and you get your $97, your 4x6, and they throw in like a Bill Elliott necktie or something like that.
That's just what we need.
There was a lot of things like that, so it was all worth it.
Wear that to your next wedding.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. So we get to 2012. Listen to me. 2012. You actually got to test your dad's late model for the first time. You're still running in the mini stock, but you get to test your dad's late model. Now, you mentioned the last segment, your dad made you play baseball for 10 years while he kept racing, right? Because he kind of, I guess it was either him or you, and he wasn't ready to quit. So now in 2012, you get to test his late model for the first time. Talk about that, and I want to know where his head's at this point. Is he moving in the direction where maybe in 10 years I'll stop?
Yeah, I think he was creeping toward retirement and didn't want to admit it to himself. But he's, even to this day, he's still not retired. He's still we keep a race car ready for him at all times at the shop.
That's great.
He'll race a few times this year, I'm sure. But I think it was in the plan that eventually we would want to get another late model so we could both race at Angola Motor Speedway. At the time, the late model field there was really strong, and it's a 20 to 25 car weekly late models, and they were racing every Saturday night. It's 15 minutes from our shop, so it was a no-brainer for us. And another thing we realized about that Pinto was we didn't have any spare parts, and we can't find any spare parts. Whereas with the late model stuff, my dad's been racing late models at this time for 20 years, and we have 100 wheels and 100 shocks, and we have tons of spare parts you just accumulate over the years. So it was actually made sense and would probably be a little bit easier to move up to a late model. But
Well, by then, Ford was probably to the point where they weren't even acknowledging that they ever actually produced the Pinto. Right?
You'd have
We're
to go
not
to,
making any more parts for that thing.
yeah, even to get brakes for the thing, we had to go to, Advanced Auto Parts, and they're like, what are you putting this on? And 1968 Ford Pinto. And they're like, no, we don't got them. So
That's funny.
it made sense to eventually move to late models. And I believe at the time too, Angola's 16-year-old age restriction on racing late models. So I did end up racing the Pinto for 2 years until I turned 16 and got to drive my dad's late model for the first time. I couldn't see. I was kind of gauging where I was by the top of the turn that I could see.
Oh my!
But anyway, I'm like, wow, this power steering, 10-inch tires. I'm like, this is like driving a Cadillac compared to that Ford Pinto. So I knew I wanted to drive one someday. And then I believe it was the following year, 2013, my first full season in the late model. Ended up winning Rookie of the Year at Angola Motor Speedway. It was a great season. Had a fast car a ton of times. Found a way to make a rookie mistake at the end of every race and not get the win. That's what you do when you're a rookie, is discover all the ways to lose races, and I think I found them all, including wrecking my dad on the last lap coming to the checkered flag.
Oh no!
Yeah,
You wrecked your dad on the last lap coming to the checkered for the win.
That's right. We were running a 1-2 side by side, coming to the checkered flag out of turn 4, and my spotter was in my ear saying, "Dive it in there," and I dove it in there. Toward my dad, broke his left front control arm, left front flat tire.
Oh, wow.
Bent all my right front up, and the guy in third place ended up winning the race. So that's something I still haven't been able to live down 9 years later. So
That's
obviously
funny.
I had to fix 2 race cars that week.
Overtime in the shop.
That's
is what
right.
that amounts to. That's funny. So eventually, around 2014, you ended up runner-up at Angola, and then you started competing in 2015 on some of the big regional and national series with the late model. Talk a little bit about the CRA and, of course, ASA, which was a great series.
Yeah, we've got to do a lot of it. Starting in around 2015, I think probably the first track I went to in a late model outside of Angola would have been Anderson Speedway in Anderson, Indiana. And after racing in Angola for so long, and that being my first track outside of Angola, it kind of felt like racing in a hallway, tiny quarter-mile track,
Yeah.
know. I'm like, I'm not sure that 23 cars can fit on this track, but we'll give it a shot. But
if you could fit 33 sprint cars three abreast.
Oh yeah,
for the start of the Little 500.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you'll fit late models on it.
Yeah, for sure. And we started traveling around. We had a lot of speed at a lot of different places, and I really enjoyed, and I think the team did too, just switching up the scenery a little bit. We had spent 4 or 5 years in a row at Angola Motor Speedway, and I think all of us wanted to try out some different series, try out some different tracks. We ended up getting some different cars, and we've been all over the Midwest now. We've won at a lot of different tracks, had a lot of success, and certainly had a lot of fun over the years.
Well, it's definitely cool that you had the chance to get to this point where you're running. I mean, that's the CRA series, especially whether you're running Sportsman or you're running, the JAGS series. They've got the All-Star series now that's traveling around. So many different national series in the country in the late model, so competitive. I think the Cars Tour here, which is actually a regional series, is as competitive as any of them at this point, at least in the late model stock side, but even the pro late models are building. What are you seeing as far as, the trend in late model racing? I mean, it seems to be, what's your view of it kind of from the Midwest perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of maybe an unpopular opinion here.
We like those.
All right, hot take. I see the trend in late model racing where the tires are getting bigger and the engines are getting smaller. And what we have been doing with the Sportsman series, and I love the Sportsman series, and the reason why is the horsepower is as big as it can get. There's less restrictions in the Sportsman series than in the ASA Stars Tour, for example. You can make, up to 300 more horsepower in a Sportsman car than you could make in a super late model, a traditional super late model. And secondly, we're on 8-inch tires instead of 10-inch tires. So I think if there was a analog in the greater racing scene, the Sportsman series is kind of like the Xfinity series in the sense that it's less tire, more horsepower, much more out of control. And I think that's what it's all about. I think lower quarter speeds and raising straightaway speeds is the best way to, have fun, first of all, as a driver. And secondly, make it so it is hard to drive. And that's what I've always wanted as a car that's tough to drive. And I think the Sportsman car is as close as you can get to a modified in that sense, I would say.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, I think in general, first of all, obviously, as soon as you introduce the phrase aero or the word aero, and, you start talking downforce, so you get, like you said, bigger tires, smaller motors. You don't have enough horsepower to blow the tires off the back of it. It just becomes a different kind of driving, and I just don't think it's as challenging for the racer. But yeah, it is interesting to see the kind of the evolution of the way late models, both pro/super late models, which are the same thing with different carburetors and tires or whatever, and then the NASCAR late model stock division too, even here in the South, is, there's all kinds of back and forth about different motors, crate motors or whatever that are out there. And it's just been kind of a mess. So it's interesting to get different perspectives from around the country. But now, so how's your season going so far?
Well, if I had to compare it to somebody else's season, wearing a Kyle Busch shirt under this sweatshirt, it kind of started off like that.
Oh boy.
We started off with 3 DNFs this year. Had really great cars, just mechanical failures, just terrible luck to start the season. Last race, the first race we actually got to run all the laps at, we qualified on the pole, finished second, and I think we have a ton of momentum going forward for the rest of the season. I think we've been really close a lot of years to having everything right, and I think we've finally come to a point where we have the right partners. My pit crew is so great, and things are just getting better every week, and I feel really optimistic about the rest of the season.
Well, that's good. It's always good to. You can start off bad, but as long as you can recover by the time you get into the summer, you still got half your season left to save it. I know you can't race by yourself, so got about a minute or so. Talk about who helps you make it happen, sponsors, team, whatever.
Yeah, so I got to start with my team. My dad and my grandpa are the core of my team. They've been at this for 40 years now, so that's really where it all starts. So I'm forever grateful for them. And then the rest of the crew, they're actually at the shop right now, down the road. That's how good they are. But everybody there, my crew chief Jeff, Motor Roger, Brandon, Trey, Tony, Zach, everybody. Got to thank them all so much. And then also my partners this year between Handprint Inc., Everidge Motor Sales, Tracktune, Tracktune's sister company, Auditory Defense, also came on board for this year. They're offering a lot of hearing protection items that everyone should check out. And Robin at Evolve Tech. So many people to thank. Thank you all so much.
Okay, so when we come back, we're going to talk to Cassten for a little while longer here. We're going to spend some time talking about this Tracktune app that you keep seeing and hearing about on all of our shows here. It's an amazing little tool that everybody needs. We just didn't know it until we got it. And Cassten is part of the team that invented it. So we're going to talk to him about that on the other side. We'll be back with more of the show after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the Tracktune app. Tracktune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, getinthestands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to getinthestands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. Getinthestands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to getinthestands.com. Getinthestands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. Cassten Everidge with us. We've been talking about his racing career, but we've got a whole different side of Cassten that we're going to talk about now. Because for those of you watching this, you may be saying, well, geez, who knew that Cassten was a tech geek? Well, he is, and we're going to talk about, you've been hearing and seeing about the app that Cassten and a couple of his college buddies actually built, the Tracktune app. So I want to start by asking you to take us back to those days in college. And first of all, what were you majoring in? Because I'm curious if the major ties in with, obviously, inventing an app. If you're going for computer science or something. But talk a little bit about what the genesis was for you and a couple of your college friends to build an app that actually helps the fans and the teams to be able to hear the PA system from the track through their phone or any device with earbuds.
Yeah, I want to start off by clarifying your use of the word tech geek. In our About Us page on the Tracktune site, I think it was described as casting being as technically useful as a starter on a sprint car. So that's how my co-founders would describe me. Now
I was trying to, pay you a compliment, and then now you just took the mask off.
I had some great co-founders who were the technical brains of the project. I was the racing brains. So at the time, I was at Purdue, and I was studying mechanical engineering technology.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so I am an engineer, not the kind that makes apps.
Okay.
So luckily, I had the right friends to help there. So I guess the earliest traces of what would become Tracktune was probably my freshman year of college. I remember at the time, maybe this is just what freshman engineers do, but me and my buddies would go to a pizza place and have a business meeting and talk about what we knew we needed to start a business, and we didn't know what it was yet. So we would just kind of be spitballing pretty senselessly. But one of the early ideas for us was Tracktune. It was a problem I had seen firsthand. It's really obvious in hindsight, the necessity of the product, but kind of the genesis of the idea goes back to time. I believe it was at Lucas Oil Raceway in Indianapolis, and this is kind of the story we always tell about where it started or whatever. But I was there for an ARCA race, just watching, and I remember after the race, my dad was at home watching on TV up in northern Indiana, and I called him just to talk about the race. Whenever I go to a NASCAR race or whatever, we always kind of talk and debrief the race afterward. And so I call him and I'm like, oh, what'd you think of the race? And he's like, I can't believe so-and-so ran out of gas. And I was like, what? I was there and I didn't even know.
Oh, wow.
This storyline had happened. And
how did he know?
He was watching on TV. And
okay.
So that was kind of the genesis of the problem is I went to the track and I bought a ticket, and I was sitting there, and I was less informed than my dad, who was watching at home for free, essentially, on his cable subscription or whatever. And I'm like, it kind of seems unfair that I'm less informed than the people who aren't making the effort to come to the track.
That's
so that's kind of the genesis of the idea, is like, how can we better inform the fans who are at the track? And we're like, we need to find a way to develop a lightweight app that you can have on your phone. You can click what track you're at and put in earbuds and be able to actually hear the announcer. And that simple idea was where it started. And so, for example, this logo on my shirt here was probably designed in like 2016, really early on in college.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was kind of just an idea that I would work on for a little bit, write some really bad code for, and then it would kind of sit dormant until after the next exam, and then I'd have a few hours again and work on it. No real progress to be had. It kind of became revived again my senior year at Purdue, right before I graduated. There was actually sort of a startup accelerator at Purdue called Firestarter, and I got some great guidance from those people there. It's free for students. If you are a business owner starting a startup, whatever, you can join these free cohorts as a student. And basically, it's like a 10 or 12-week course. You kind of walk through the basics of market research and defining your audience, defining your target market. And so at that time, one of the projects was you had to talk to 30 customers, and a lot of other people in the cohort, they were selling, say a children's toy. They could just go to Walmart and talk to parents and be like, hey, would you buy this toy? In my case, my customer was racetrack owners, so it was a little bit harder to get a hold of 30 of them.
Sure. Yeah.
I started playing the telephone game, just calling around and, call the owner of X track and be like, hey, do you know any other track owners that you can put me in contact with, and kind of talking to them about the idea. And early feedback suggested, like, yes, this is a need, and the right track owners see it, and there's an obvious need in the market for it. So that all happened, and then it sat dormant again for another year. And then finally, in October of 2021, me and a friend of mine, we were just kind of spitballing again, and we're like, you know what, we just need to, suck it up and get this done right now. Let's bring this to life. We keep talking about it. Let's finally
do it.
And
sure.
So then roped in one other buddy, and the three of us hopped on a call, and we're like, here's the market, here's the product, here's how we're going to do it. Let's do it right now. And we got started, and we rolled it out really quick. Development began, late 2021, and we rolled out for our first trial in December of 2021 at the Rumble in Fort Wayne indoor kart race.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, and the trial failed. So back to the drawing board again. Then we spent, 3 or 4 more months of development. And then in April of 2022, we got to roll it out to our first audience at Anderson Speedway, Indiana.
Okay.
They were our first beta tester customer. And in that first year, we brought on 4 beta tester customers, different types of tracks, different regions of the U.S., and kind of worked out all the bugs, and, got super positive feedback from fans. And so then in the next off season, we doubled down again and went from 4 tracks to, I believe, 28 tracks in our second season. And, things are really clicking. So yeah, we kept building, and it all worked out. And I think every week you're seeing it increase in I was looking at the app today. I think there's 45 cards on there now, or something in that range.
Very close. Yeah, it's in the 40s. Yeah. And new, like you said, new tracks every week. We had a couple of tracks from New York that came on this week, Chemung Speedrome being one of the tracks I worked at for a while. It's incredible to see its growth. And really, like I said, it's something we all needed, but it was sort of, the need was hiding in plain sight. You go to the racetrack and you could hear the announcer until the cars started racing. And then, of course, the PA doesn't get over the top of the cars. And the beautiful thing about Tracktune is it gives you that ability to do that, but also then, as you mentioned, Auditory Defense, which is a sister company, makes and does a lot with hearing protection. You can actually order special hearing protection phones that you can plug in, earmuffs you can plug in to your phone, and it also cuts the decibels down and provides a really great experience. And so something you can use as a fan, but you can also use it as a race team in the pits to keep track of when you're supposed to be on the grid or whatever. It's just it's a really handy little thing.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to imagine turning on a NASCAR race, muting the TV, and then not having the bar at the top to give you running order. And that's essentially the default experience if you go to a race in person. And for a lot of races, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's the field is organized enough you can keep track of what's going on. But in some cases, and the example I always use is the Little 500 at Anderson. We mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That was like our second or third ever event for Tracktune. And that was the first time we had been on site doing promotion, telling people, introducing people to the app. And in that day, we got something like 1,500 check-ins on the app. In one of our first events. And that is when it became so obvious to me that the necessity of this app. If you want to truly be informed about the race on the track, you need to put in the earbuds. And that event specifically, Adam Mackey was the announcer. He's a great announcer. And when you start 33 sprint cars, 3 wide on a quarter-mile track, running 10-second lap times, it divulges into chaos immediately. And without the help of Adam in that case, it's hard to stay informed on what you're even watching. So that's when it became so obvious, and we're like, yeah, we're really onto something here. This just feels right, watching a race like this. It makes so much sense.
Well, and of course it's grown to the point where the three of you decided it was time to put it into someone else's hands, and so which has been done, and it continues to grow under the new ownership team, and you're still kind of a part of the support part of it, I think, and certainly a big fan of it, and I think it's awesome. I had a chance to actually use it for the first time in January at an indoor go-kart race, and we used it as our live stream too, because we didn't have anybody doing video or anything. It was a great audio live stream tool, and it worked like a charm. And we had a couple thousand folks listening by the end of the first day, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, and I used it again at Anderson Speedway in Florida, Auburndale Speedway in Florida for the Winter Showdown. We had it, and people loved it. It was really, really convenient, and you don't miss anything the announcers say, which means you also don't miss any of the sponsor plugs that they're throwing in the middle of the races if they do. So it's actually a tool that you can use to further promote to your sponsors and say, look, these people are not missing a thing here. And it's a great replacement, by the way, for the old low power FM radio that's probably half broken down by now because you've had it for 20 years. So it's awesome, Cassten, to hear a little bit about that and about how it all started and the genesis of it. And we're excited to see where it goes. We love it, and we're big fans of it here on the Tom Baker Show. So I want to thank you for taking some time to be on with us, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again down the road, and wish you the best of luck for the rest of your racing season.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
That is Cassten Everidge. We'll be back with hot topics right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the Tracktune app. Tracktune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. It is time for Hot Topics. And boy, do we have some hot topics to talk about here. A lot has happened just in the last week to 10 days here, especially in NASCAR, but not just NASCAR. We'll start there, though. Last week, I talked about the fact that I thought Josh Berry, who has been running for Stewart-Haas Racing, which is going away at the end of the year, I thought he would end up at Front Row Motorsports. It seemed logical enough. They've got an opening in the 34 car for 25 because McDowell's leaving, going to Spire. And I thought, well, gosh, they've also got a third charter they're going to be buying, so they're starting a third team. Surely Josh will go there. Wrong. That's what I get for thinking. Josh Berry is actually going to drive next year for the Wood Brothers, multi-year deal in the 21 car to replace the departing Harrison Burton. And I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised, more sort of curiously surprised, I think, because my curiosity is whether or not they will actually be able to bring Rodney Childers over to the 21 team. That's a team that for a number of years, obviously, if you go back to the 60s and 70s and 80s, that was one of the most dominant teams in NASCAR's Cup Series. Well, here in just the last couple of years with Harrison Burton driving, for some reason, it just hasn't clicked. And I don't want to paint Harrison with a bad brush because I'm not convinced it's all Harrison. I think there's some things inside with the team or whatever. For whatever reason, it just isn't going well. So there was talk of him being replaced, and everybody thought it would be Chase Briscoe. But of course, Chase, we all now know, is replacing Martin Truex Jr. in the number 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. And Truex has been talking about running perhaps the Daytona 500 next year, maybe some Xfinity races, and maybe even a truck race or two. He wants to maybe try to help Ryan Truex further his career. So it could be interesting to see what Martin and Ryan are able to concoct together going forward here. But Martin won't be full-time in any division. So again, Josh Berry to the Wood Brothers. That brings the question, what about Noah Gragson and Ryan Preece, the other two drivers from Stewart-Haas Racing on the Cup side that have not been spoken for yet? Well, again, Front Row Motorsports at the moment has two cars for next year, the 34, and a new team that is scheduled to start with the charter that they've already said they were going to purchase. 2 seats available. So is it Noah Gragson in one seat and maybe Ryan Preece in the other? Who knows? A lot of rumors about Gragson going to Richard Childress Racing. I'm not buying it. Richard Childress Racing is having enough trouble right now getting 2 cars to run in the front of the field. I can't see them adding a third. The only way this makes sense to me, because I don't care what anyone says, I'll believe Kyle Busch is leaving the 8 car when he signs the contract to race somewhere else. It's surely not going to be Gibbs, and I don't see anywhere for him to go, and I don't think there's any truth to that at all. So the only way Noah Gragson goes to RCR is if Austin Dillon decides to step out of the seat in the 3 car, which would probably then become 33 or some other number. But I don't know. Something about that just doesn't ring true, though it would be an interesting move. I'll tell you what holds me back on this is you've got Austin Hill down there who's shown plenty enough talent and success in the Xfinity series to move up to Cup. And you've also got Jesse Love sitting down there who's looking like with another couple of year or two of seasoning, and he gets to Cup, gets a year or two on. Jesse could be a future franchise driver for Richard Childress Racing. And so I don't know. The Noah to Childress thing doesn't ring hollow. It doesn't ring true to me. I'm still saying that right now I see Noah going to Front Row in one car or the other. I'm not sure about Ryan Preece. There's not been a lot of speculation there. And I really feel bad for Ryan because Ryan has shown flashes of being able to race for wins in the Cup Series. And I think he just needs a stable situation with a team that can actually put winning race cars on the track consistently, and he would flourish. So we'll see where all that goes. Now, I want to talk about a penalty for a minute. Carson Hocevar was fined $50,000 and docked 25 points for spinning the aforementioned Harrison Burton under yellow during Sunday's Ally 400 at Nashville. Under caution, I stress. Not under green, under caution. Now, Carson, for me, is a bit of an enigma. It's like just when you think that he's starting to move past the point in his career in the Truck Series where he was known for being over-aggressive and doing things he shouldn't, now here he goes, under caution, spinning Harrison Burton out. NASCAR does frown on that. And so Hocevar, $50K lighter in the wallet at this point. I am a huge fan of Carson's, and I'm a huge believer in his talent. But the decision-making, the mental game, is really where he's always lacked. And if he can get past that, then I think Carson Hocevar, with the right opportunity, is a front runner and a winner in Cup. But right now, that sort of thing holds him back, I think. So Joseph Newgarden in IndyCar is saying he wants to run the double. By that, I mean the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. Now, keep in mind who Joseph Newgarden races for. He runs for Roger Penske. Roger Penske owns IndyCar. He owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the Indy 500 runs at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and is the biggest IndyCar race of the year and one of the biggest races, if not the biggest race in the world. So Roger would have every reason to make sure that Joseph Newgarden gets a chance to go do this, right? Not so fast. Here's Penske's problem. Ryan Blaney, who is the defending Cup Series champion, Blaney runs for Penske in the Cup Series, NASCAR. He wants to do it as well. I'm not sure how that all works out. And Roger, I'm not sure Roger is real excited about one of his IndyCar drivers focusing, or Cup drivers focusing on both, for fear that it might just lessen the chances to win one or the other. But I also think that Roger would love to be able to say that one of his guys became the first to win the double. So I think this presents a really interesting thought process for Mr. Penske to debate and see if it ever can happen. But I would love to see Joseph Newgarden. I think he would need some time in a Cup car, though. I don't think you're just going to show up at Charlotte and win the 600. But I would love to see him try it. Joseph's a great driver, very talented. Obviously, IndyCar champion, two-time Indy 500 winner. Would be fun to watch that. Okay, also announcement for 2025 IndyCar. Okay, McLaren making driver changes again. Alex Rossi's out. His 2-year contract's up. He's gone. Replacing him, young Mr. Lundgaard. Now, this is a bit of a surprise. So Lundgaard coming over from Rahal Letterman Lanigan, and now there's questions about will Rossi be his replacement. The rumor mill says no. The rumor mill says Yuri Vips will be the replacement, and he'll get promoted and be able to be a full-time Indy racer. We'll have to see, but I'm not sure about this move. I think Lundgaard is surely a talent, but wow, that was a big surprise, honestly. Another note from the IndyCar side of things, hybrid motors starting at Mid-Ohio. I love this. I can't wait to see how this works out. I'm hoping it works out well, improves the racing, horsepower increased with the hybrid power to about 800. That's a big change. Going to be interesting to see what it does for IndyCar the rest of the year. NASCAR's certainly looking at it, and they're going to be paying attention to how this all works out in IndyCar. Okay, NHRA. Michael Andretti, Auto Week article, rumor, Michael Andretti interested maybe in adding an NHRA team. Oh boy, that could be a lot of fun. And I think that's a place where Michael Andretti could really make an impact. NHRA needs as many big names as we can get, especially with the legend of them all, the granddaddy of them all, John Force, still recovering. Now, John has been moved from ICU to the neuro wing of intensive care, and he's been starting to respond to commands and to speak a little bit. He's got a long road to recovery, but we're all praying for John Force to get healthy enough again to at least be able to think about possibly getting back in a race car. Even if he never does, though, John Force has given so much to the sport. We know his family team will continue to. Austin Prock will carry on the name, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We'd love to see John recover fully and at least have the choice of being able to get back in and end his career on his own note, so to speak. But keep your eye on that Andretti rumor in the NHRA, because I think it has some merit. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. For more exclusive content and stories, join us over at our steeringwheelnation.com hub. And, of course, our 24/7 streaming page on the WatchPowerTubeTV.com website. In case you missed any of our past episodes, you can catch up on all of them on the streaming channel. Visit Tracktune.live for more information about everything we talked about with Cassten Everidge earlier about how you can sign up your track to make it easier for your fans to not miss any of the information that's being disseminated over the PA system, even when the cars are at full song at your racetrack. And of course, check out ultimateqm.com for all the info on how to get your young one started in quarter midget racing. Winners win with Ultimate QM. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Wheel Nation. And of course, Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn as well. And you can follow me on LinkedIn there too. Tom Baker Media is my handle on LinkedIn. And I love having new people follow me on LinkedIn. Come on over and let's chat. And that's going to wrap it up for this week for our show. Thanks to everyone for watching. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next Friday. Thanks for watching.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.